So has this happened to you? You buy a brand new camera, you're excited to have it, and it's got a few quirks that you wish it didn't have, but you're excited with your new camera because it was hyped like crazy. And then you hear about a camera just a few months later that is the same model of your camera, but with better features. And you wonder, why did you go buy that camera? Well, in this video, we're gonna talk through that specifically because I went through that, and my actual decision that have me using the original camera that I bought and have no desire for that bigger, better version. If you're new to my channel, definitely consider subscribing. This is Magnus, and I like to talk about cameras and video and all that stuff, and training and all that other stuff, and what new cameras are coming out, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff, so stick around, and what you'll get more than anything else is my personality. We're talking about the R5. But this could apply to other cameras. Say you bought for example, Sony a7S III, and then the FX3 comes out and you're like, why didn't I buy that? Or you bought the GH5 a long time ago and then the GH5S came out. And in this case, you bought the R5 and then you see the R5C come out. But not only did the R5C come out, but you also had the Canon C70 and you had Atomos coming out with a recorder that eliminates a lot of the overheating issues with the Canon R5. I'm going to tell you why I finally made my decision and what that was in this video. As you know, or if you don't know, the R5 is an amazing camera that came out in July of 2020, and it had next level features that no camera at the time was offering, such as 8K video in RAW recording using the full frame, 4K 120 frames per second, 4K 60 frames per second, and of course 30, and then basically a high quality 4K that's actually downsampling from 8K to 4K, all in this amazing body. And then right before the camera was released, they were like, yeah, there are limitations with the recording, it kind of overheats. And when it was released to the public, oh man, was that more of an issue that we wanted. Granted, firmware updates fixed a lot of that, but there were still issues. Now that in itself was disappointing, but then upon using the camera, I found that most of the features work right for me and have only rarely hit overheating issues. So then I had to make a decision when I heard the R5C came out and then the C70 came out and then Atomos, their recorder, came out. It was like, why should I upgrade? It's that whole like gear acquisition syndrome. For example, I got the GH5 and when the GH5S came out, I was like, well, it does everything the GH5 does, but it's got a dual native ISO sensor so you can actually do better low light performance, and it just had better frame rates in it. And of course it removed IBIS. And then when the a7S III came out, you're like, well, Sony, they do a great job letting you know, a7S III, this is our video focused camera. And that's what happened with the a7S II, right? But then they came out with the FX3 that was pretty much an a7S III body, but in a cinema style body. And it was like, come on, why are you doing this? And why are you releasing them so that we have to buy one camera and then we have to buy another camera? Why can't it be at the same time so we can make a decision? And it's almost like these camera companies are tricking us. Unfortunately, it took a little bit longer between the R5 and the R5C, but the same thing happened. You already invested in a camera body and then they release another one and say, this is our video-centric version. A lot of things came into the decision of whether I should upgrade or not, because again, I don't feel that one should upgrade just because this has slightly better features if you're not going to use them. I use the 8K RAW all the time, so I was like, this is something I definitely wanted to be able to record 8K RAW as much as I wanted. And after much work in my previous video, which I'll link in this one, I found that I could actually get all the features to work on a professional project with little to no worry on overheating. My biggest concern, and this is why everyone's got to really think, what did they really want and what are they going to really use? My biggest concern was that I wanted to record raw footage as much as possible, but in a compact format. I wanted the raw video to be as small as possible. That pretty much eliminated the Atomos Ninja, because the Atomos Ninja's ProRes RAW files are actually pretty large, comparably large when compared to the internal recording of the R5 in Canon RAW Lite. So from that perspective, it kind of was like a bummer. You know, sure, memory is cheaper on the Atomos Ninja because it's SSD, but then it's still huge files, which I was trying to get away from. And then the other problem was just that Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, two editing programs that I use currently, do not allow for all of the functionality in RAW yet. It may happen in the future, but you have limited functionality of those RAW files in Adobe Premiere, and you can't even use them in DaVinci Resolve. So that was out of the question. So I threw that camera out. But what about the R5C? Well, the R5C allows you to have all of these features. But I've also noticed that even though IBIS is not super usable when you're moving around and trying to get moving shots, IBIS is crazy useful when you're actually standing still and actually filming something as if you're on a tripod. And I found that that works so well because I've found myself in many situations where I need IBIS just to keep my shot steady as I'm filming something pretty far. So the R5 with its IBIS was definitely an advantage. That and the fact that the R5C's battery life is abysmal and you have to kind of like rig it out just to get a little bit more usage out of it. Unfortunately, I was not into. But the good thing is that the RAW files can actually be a bit smaller, and that is something good, which is a shame that unfortunately that camera's battery life and lack of IBIS was not for me. But then the question was, how can I get as much raw footage as possible in a small file format? And that's why I was considering ProRes RAW. And that's why I was considering even the C70 with its like RAW Lite to SD card. That would have been amazing. And then of course the R5C with its RAW recording. And the best choice for me actually, and the final choice, and sorry I delayed it, was actually to pick up a 2TB CFExpress card. Now let me explain, because these things don't come cheap. I'll leave a link in the description down below to how much this thing costs, and then of course you can pick one up, which is an affiliate link. I get a little bit of pushback with affiliate links, but of course it doesn't cost you anything extra, so that supports the channel. So thank you if you do that. I will tell you that the reason that I preferred the card, even though it's expensive, versus getting those other pieces of equipment is mostly because, again, I want a small camera body, nothing to add on to it, and I want the reliability that the R5 already gives me. And the overheating, like I said, has not been an issue in most of my projects. And then even in this video, I'm recording to my other CFExpress card in RAW, and it hasn't been a problem. I know how to temperature control my camera, so if I have a longer shoot and I do want to record RAW, I can record 40 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour, and still keep going on the R5 if that's a pre-planned project that I so choose. And if not, just getting a couple of minutes in RAW, just like I'm doing now. I didn't do anything special. I just hit the record button and started recording. That is an option that I can definitely do. But then those large files, to have a 2TB express card and a 1TB express card, that's 3 TB of footage that I can record in RAW. I have 3 to 4 hours of RAW footage that I can record amongst both memory cards, and I don't need all this other stuff. Yes, I had to spend more money, but I would have had to spend more money upgrading as well when I can get everything that I need off of this. And like I said, overheating is a compromise, but each of those setups was a compromise. The Atomos is a compromise because you need the monitor and then dealing with those files. The C70 is a compromise because you're not getting those higher resolutions. R5C is a compromise because of battery life and because you don't have IBIS. So all of these options had a compromise, and I just had to pick what would work best for me. And I think that at least in this point, the R5 is best for me. Point of this whole story is that the solution of upgrading your camera doesn't always mean getting rid of your camera. You can get the most out of your camera if you either know how to rig it or know how to give yourself or make decisions on options that'll work better for you in your shoots. And as a small side story, when the GH5 sensor was too small for me and I wasn't getting enough light, rather than upgrading the camera, what I did was I got a Metabone speed booster, which of course simulates a larger sensor, and then I was able to use my Canon glass and really get a lot more light into the sensor, which made my videos turn out that much better on the GH5. I didn't need a different camera. I just needed to know what to buy for it. And that's the point of this video today. So let me know if you guys have any comments. Were you upset that camera manufacturers tend to release their cameras and then release a slightly better one for videographers just a little bit later? Let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, I'm speculating because even though the GH6 was just released, I do believe that they'll release a GH6S and they'll take out the IBIS on that camera and then have a few video features. And that in itself is kind of like, well, you didn't tell us that this was coming, and then it comes out. That's unfair. And that's kind of my point. Like, look out for a GH6S, because camera manufacturers do that, but they don't tell you about it until it's too late, because you've already adopted their initial run. And that's what Panasonic did, Sony did that, Canon did that. It's unfair. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and as always, like, share, and you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys later.